So this is actually happening. Six Flags and Cedar Fair, two of the biggest amusement park chains, are officially merging. When we first saw the news of this, we expressed real skepticism. But on November 2nd, 2023, both park chains made announcements that this merger is happening. This is our in-depth look at the merger details and what park goers can expect when this deal closes in the first half of 2024. Cedar Fair and Six Flags will conduct a merger of equals, meaning no one entity will have more control over the resulting company. But this merger is actually a quote-unquote triangular merger, meaning neither company will survive as a standalone entity. There will also be a reorganization to facilitate the merger if you look at the deal details, with Cedar Fair and Six Flags each transferring their assets and liabilities to subsidiaries, which will then be the merging companies. So instead of two individual companies, there will be a holding company called Copper Steel Holdco, which will receive both Six Flags and Cedar Fair's assets and liabilities. The parties have created a merger subsidiary to facilitate the actual transaction, and Holdco will hold the equity, assets, and liabilities. This new company will publicly trade under the Six Flags brand name while offering Cedar Fair's fun stock. As an aside, the decision to go with this setup stems from Six Flags' widespread name recognition and Cedar Fair's stronger, more valuable stock. After all, Cedar Fair's stock was at least 10 points higher than Six Flags over the past few years. And like all contracts, the agreement and plan of merger needs consideration. So the consideration in this transaction will be stock, specifically a stock-for-stock merger. Cedar Fair shareholders will receive one share of Copper Steel Holdco stock for each Cedar Fair share of stock they have, whereas Six Flags stockholders will receive about 6/10 of the new stock for each share of Six Flags stock they have. This has to do with Cedar Fair's higher market valuation. After all the shareholders receive their converted stocks, Cedar Fair shareholders will have a 51.2% interest in the new company, while Six Flags shareholders will have 48.8%. Effectively, this 51-49% split will give Cedar Fair shareholders control over all fundamental corporate changes like electing board directors, approving any subsequent transactions, and even liquidation. But to counteract the shareholder breakdown, the new company's board of directors will have 13 members, 6 directors from the Six Flags side, and 6 directors from the Cedar Fair side. But Six Flags CEO Salim Basul will serve as the executive chairman, and his role as executive chairman gives him control over the board agenda and the new company's overarching direction. The board will also be classified into 3 classes, which factors in a staggered board takeover defense. Outside of the board, the primary corporate officers will be as follows. Cedar Fair CEO Richard Zimmerman will be the president and CEO. Cedar Fair CFO Brian Witherow will be the CFO. And Six Flags CFO Gary Mick will be the Chief Integration Officer. And aside from the corporate structure, the laws of Delaware will govern the merger and post-transaction governance, as both Six Flags and Cedar Fair are Delaware businesses, as in they are incorporated in Delaware. The merger will also require the new company to file a new tax form, which makes it a separate taxable C corporation for federal corporate income tax purposes. Though this merger looks like a merger of equals, Cedar Fair has most of the control. Embedded in the definitive merger agreement is a triggering event, which allows Cedar Fair to terminate the agreement if Six Flags' board of directors fail to recommend to its shareholders that they approve and adopt the merger agreement, or fail to affirm that approval and adoption in certain circumstances. This triggering event comes with a $63 million+ termination fee that Six Flags will have to bear if this doesn't close. Six Flags and Cedar Fair will also execute a voting and support agreement as part of the merger. This agreement will allow for both in-person and proxy shareholder voting to approve the deal, which the board will then adopt. The agreement also covenants that no shareholder will vote inconsistent with any prior agreements made among the shareholders, and the shareholders of record cannot transfer their shares during this merger shareholder voting period. So shareholders will waive any dissenter or appraisal rights, which means anyone voting against the merger will not have guaranteed appraisal and buyout of their current shares. So ultimately, the merger, once it's complete, will see a new company with new employee plans, a new corporate headquarters in Charlotte, North Carolina, and a structure more primed to compete with Universal, Disney, and SeaWorld. But the deal must first pass certain checkpoints before it becomes official, like regulatory approval from governmental authorities like the DOJ Antitrust Division and or the FTC, the consummation of related financing transactions, as there is a $3 billion loan involved, and steady work to close the deal, as time does kill all deals. And just a last aside, the law firms of Weil Gotshal and Squire Patton Boggs, two separate law firms, represent Cedar Fair, while a big law firm by the name of Kirkland and Ellis will represent Six Flags. So, aside from all the corporate law issues, what does this mean for park goers? To the general public, this transaction has nothing to do with them in terms of the nitty gritty, as most people have no idea that this merger is happening. But those who do know about it have significant reservations that fall into one of three categories. First, monopoly power. Without the incentive to compete with each other regionally, the new Six Flags-Cedar Fair company could increase prices astronomically. Salim Basul already tried to raise prices without any noticeable improvements once before when he was just getting started at Six Flags. Another category is decreased quality at the Cedar Fair parks. Six Flags is known for budget options and doing the bare minimum to keep guests coming through the gates. Based on Salim Basul's role as the executive chairman, a Six Flags mentality could funnel down to operational philosophies at Cedar Fair parks. A third category is further small park neglect. If you live near a small Six Flags or Cedar Fair park, you should know this: Six Flags America, La Ronde, Michigan's Adventure, Six Flags St. Louis, and other smaller parks already get the investment shaft. This new merger with 8 or 9 flagship parks to keep investment eyes on might see the often neglected parks get even less investment over time, which might see many of these smaller parks get sold off or even closed entirely. While the monopoly problem, like unfair trade practices and price gouging, is a real one to keep an eye on, the corporate structure in place creates safeguards against the other two problems. As the head of day-to-day operations at Cedar Fair and this new company, Richard Zimmerman has all final say over each park's fundamental quality, meaning a Cedar Fair mindset can and will likely permeate all other Six Flags parks, not named over Texas, Fiesta Texas, Magic Mountain, Great Adventure, or Great America. That said, Cedar Fair's more conservative outlook on delivering more family-friendly thrills over high-risk, high-reward extreme thrills conflicts with the Six Flags mentality of pushing the boundaries of amusement investment. After all, it was Six Flags that introduced the world to the RMC iBox track and Intamin's prefab El Toro. Just think about what would have happened to El Toro in 2022 if it was at a Cedar Fair park, as it had eerie similarities to Son of Beast at Kings Island. And Cedar Fair is notorious for removing fan-favorite attractions because of incidents. Son of Beast, which wasn't a fan favorite at Kings Island, Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point, and even the Tornado Water Slide at Kings Dominion's Soak City. Nonetheless, the need to compete with Universal and Disney will continue to drive innovation, especially when you look at those chains' recent additions: Pantheon, Iron Gwazi, and Pipeline Surf Coaster for the SeaWorld parks, and Velocicoaster and the new Fast and Furious roller coasters for the Universal parks, and even Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Epcot. Not to mention Hershey Park, the Palace Entertainment Parks, and other smaller independently owned parks continue to add great additions every single year. Wildcats Revenge is an excellent roller coaster on the East Coast. And if you went to either Dark Nights at Hershey Park or Hallow Scream at Busch Gardens Williamsburg this year, you know that there is still competition for the new Six Flags-Cedar Fair company. You cannot save money and remain relevant without competing for large annual guest numbers. Both parkgoers and enthusiasts must remember these interesting points. Six Flags and Cedar Fair cite the same reasons for why they do this merger in the first place: decreased attendance numbers since 2020 and an impending economic downturn. But even without the economic downturn in the forecast, it makes sense for the two companies to combine their philosophies to compete and remain financially strong as the economy makes an uptick in a few cycles. Just look at Universal and Hershey-owned parks like Dollywood and Silver Dollar City. All parks in their chains combine quality additions with a great atmosphere. If you take Six Flags brand recognition and willingness to take risks with cutting-edge manufacturers, just look at Intamin's most recent portfolio over the last 2-3 years, and throw in Cedar Fair's quality over quantity mindset, and you get a chain that goes above and beyond to enhance customer service. Having been to Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Six Flags Great Adventure, and Six Flags America, Kings Dominion, and Hershey Park just this year, we have seen how great operations and excellent atmosphere make for a better, more enjoyable experience. Our trips to Six Flags Great Adventure and Kings Dominion alone this past year show how a Cedar Flags combination can enhance guest experience while still competing with the bigger chains. Overall, the Six Flags Cedar Fair merger poses a lot of excitement about getting one pass for every major regional amusement park in the country, and a lot of uncertainty about diminished quality, higher prices, and unwillingness to add more investments in each park, even the neglected ones. But we see great promise in what these two park chains can do together. Just the corporate structure alone decreases overhead by merging the best of both chains into one powerhouse thought leadership that can prime the new company for success for years to come. While both enthusiasts and general parkgoers will not see this merger's effects until years down the road, the initial impressions are interesting. From the financial side of things, this new company now has more assets to borrow against for better and more thrilling attractions, and they have more opportunities to make this new company's parks the choice for amusement park goers. Let us know in the comments about what you think about this Six Flags Cedar Fair merger. Is it going to be worth the effort to keep pace with Universal, Disney, SeaWorld, and even Hershey? And as always, stay tuned for more amusement park content from Coaster Adventures, and we hope to see you in the next one.